All right, we are live. Hi
Hey,
everybody, and welcome to
yes.
this sixth episode of the Rust Live coding session with the B team. Can
Hello,
you
everybody.
can you hear us well in the chat? Yes, you can. Awesome. Today in the discussion we have Alexander Schmidt, we have Joshua Barreto, Samuel Rufinacha, and myself, Thibault Martinez. So this week I wanted to continue what Joshua has been doing last week during the live stream. So if you watched the last live stream, you know that Joshua has been doing an event system for the bnode. He's been continuing to work on it during the week, so it's been modified a little bit since last week. So maybe I'll do a quick overview of what changed, and what I wanted to do today is to give it a first use case, first concrete use case for the bnode. And to do that, I'm going to add MQTT feature to the bnode. So if you don't know what MQTT is, it's basically a pub/sub mechanism. Maybe I can have a more formal definition. Oops. All right, that's the French one. So basically it stands for message queuing telemetry transport. And it's basically a lightweight publish subscribe network protocol that transports messages between devices. So it's something that is built on top of the TCP/IP stack, and it allows you to exchange data. You can compare that to ZMQ, RabbitMQ. You have a lot of technologies that are quite similar. I am choosing this one. Alright, I am being notified that I have a bit of background noise, but yeah, that's the AC and I'm not sure I can do something about it. Alright, I'll try to do something with OBS. Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, that's probably the best I can do. Sorry about that. So yeah, that's very comparable to things like ZMQ. I'm choosing MQTT today because that's more suited to embedded devices. So yeah, that's what I'm going to implement today. What it means for a bnode to implement that is that it will be able to share data with clients that will consume that. If you know how a node is implemented, an IOTA node, you know that a lot of transactions are arriving, a lot of things are getting confirmed, milestones are arriving, so a lot of events happen in a node and you may want to be notified by that. You are already able to get data from a node with the API, but it's more of a polling mechanism, so you have to ask for the data. With something like pub/sub, you are being notified when new data is accessible. So depending on the use case, that's probably better. So historically, the IRI node was implementing ZMQ. I think we have some topics somewhere. So yeah, that's what the main IOTA node used to implement, and you have here a list of topics that are getting published by the node. So you have access to, for example, you have access to latest milestone index. Whenever a new milestone arrives, you have access to latest solid milestone index when a new milestone is getting solidified, and so on and so on. And for example, newly synced transactions. So that's all the topics you can register yourself to, and whenever there is something that happens on them, you are being notified. Nowadays you have the Gornet node. I think they implement both ZMQ and MQTT. Yeah, ZMQ and MQTT. So I'm just going to have a look at their MQTT topics. And you can see something quite similar. So they implemented the same topics. So we'll try to do something similar. We are probably not going to do all the topics today because that would be quite long. So maybe let's try to do the first ones, the 2 first ones, or maybe 3 first ones, depending on the time. Yeah, so let's maybe have a quick first example. So there is a client called Mosquito that allows you to write some stuff on top of MQTT. So to use MQTT as a server or as a client. So here I'm going to use MQTT sub. So sub for subscribe. So that's basically a server. So I'm going to listen to the topic called B. So if I do that, nothing's happening because it's waiting for messages. So I'm going to open another terminal and I'm going to use this time MQTT pub publish using the same topic and a message. So if I send it anytime, for example, I'm receiving in the other window the messages. Whoops. Alright, so what I'll do is that I'll keep using in my terminal Mosquito sub, and I'll start publishing instead of Mosquito pub. I'll start publishing with the B node, and we'll see if we receive some messages. Alright, let's start. Yeah. So if you followed last week, if you followed the stream last week, you know that we have this B event crate now. It changed a bit since last week. Maybe Joshua, you want to say a word about what changed?
So there haven't been any huge changes. We've just had to move things around to fix a few issues. We've ended up changing a bit of the API a little bit so that we no longer require things like cloning the event internally and stuff like that. But by and large, it remains the same.
Yeah. I think we added send and sync. It wasn't last week. But yeah.
Oh yeah, that's true. It's now completely multi-threaded.
But yeah, basically the API didn't change that much. You still see the dispatch and you still see the add listener from last week. So that's basically the same thing. I would say that the main addition is the derivation. Basically, what you create a new event, you have to implement the thread for the event to notify that's an event and to add some methods that are necessary to dispatch and to listen. So you would have to implement all of that for every event. So we added a macro. If you remember the first episode I did, we created live a derivation macro, so you have already seen something like that. So that's not new. And what it's doing basically is, maybe I can have an example there. Yeah. So I have 2 events here. I have the last milestone, which is the LMI topic, and I have the last solid milestone, which is the LSMI topic, and that we showed earlier. You can see that I derive event for them and giving them a name. So the new thing is that we are giving an attribute to the derivation. So obviously it needs to be unique. Yeah, Joshua, I may have a question for you. It's a bit annoying to me that the name that the name you are giving is will basically always be the same as the name of the actual struct. Do you think it would make sense to not require a name?
So what we can do is the event trait requires any, and what we can do is we can use, I'm going to put it in the chat here for you to see. What we can use is the type name, the type name function that's implemented for any. And we can use that instead of the name in
but that would require the type itself to be unique. I mean the name type to be unique.
Yes.
All right. Do you think it makes sense? Because
so what we can do is we can make that the default implementation. So by default, let me get it up. So by default, the name trait, the name method, will return that name.
Yeah.
And then it can be overwritten if you so want to.
All right, but if you think it makes sense to do that, I think there is an even simpler solution. Because in the derivation macro, I have access to the type name, so I can probably stringify it.
Oh yeah, that works as well.
I mean, supposing stringify is a thing.
I'm pretty sure it is. I'm sure I've
it's
used
even
it before.
It's even called Stringify. All right. So that would mean something like that. I don't know. Do I need the hashtag or not? I have no idea. Yeah, don't mind the warnings.
Yeah, you probably will.
Looks good so far. Alright, so it probably means I don't need that anymore.
Maybe we can also include the create name and the name of the struct.
Thibault.
Yeah.
What it might be doing there is it's probably stringifying just the string name. So you probably will want the hash there to replace it, because otherwise it's just going to be giving you the string, the string name like.
Yeah.
This.
Makes sense. All right, let's try that. So I wouldn't need the attribute anymore, and I wouldn't need that anymore. So yeah, that's probably a bit better. Let's quickly debug that. What can I do? Can I do something like that? Does that work? Alright, it panicked. Yeah, because I don't need that anymore. I was checking if we actually had one and only one attribute, but we removed it. Alright, so that's a bit slow to compile. come on. So I have a question. Did you guys ever use cargo expand? I have never used cargo expand. Alright. So I see event name last milestone. Alright, so it seems good. Alright, let's do that. Yeah, that's probably nicer. Oops. Alright, let's do that. Ah. I committed a master. Alright. So I'm going to create the actual crate now, the new MQTT one. I think what we are going to do now goes a bit beyond just doing MQTT. That's probably the first time we do something in the B node that could be seen as a plugin. We haven't formalized yet what a plugin in B looks like, so that would be an early prototype of it. So let's see, maybe go into cannot go. So I just copied another crate to have all the boilerplate code, but I'm just going to rename it. So what needs to be changed? MQTT license, this is fine. Dependencies, I'm going to leave everything. MQTT and MQTT. Alright, and I probably don't need that and that. Alright, let's add it in the workspace. Alright. So it should be compiled now. Alright, anyway. So now, obviously I'm going to look for a crate that does all the MQTT stuff. I'm not going to write that now. Oops. Alright, so I already had a look before the stream because I didn't want to have to choose one live because it depends on many factors, but I'm just going to, yeah, I'll go for this one, run QTT, because the first two ones are actually just dealing with the encoding, the MQTT encoding, but they are not doing any network stuff. So I'm going to go with this one. So that I don't have to handle all the TCP IP stack. Alright. Downloading the crate. Alright. So now when creating a plugin, a B plugin, you want to have access to at least two things. So I'm going to create an init function. You want to have access to two different things. You want to have access to all the events that are generated by the node, and you have to have access to the shutdown object. The shutdown object is an object that allows you to register your tasks, your asynchronous tasks, so that at the end of the life of the node, everything is cleaned up nicely. So you want to have that. So you want to have access to the bus, the event bus. The event bus has to be in an arc because it's being used by many different threads at the same time. So you want to have shared ownership of it. And you want to have the shutdown object. Alright. Alright, I'm not sure where all that is, so I'm just going to cheat a little bit. event. So the shutdown is from ecommon, so now I need to put ecommon as a dependency. There. And I need arc, of course. And I need the bus, and the bus is in the event. So I need the event. All right. So I think we said we would do the first two ones, depending on the time we have. So it's LMI and LMSI. So I'm going to look for them where they are. It happens that they are in the protocol, and that's the event I showed earlier. So I'm going to need these events. So that will be in protocol. And it means I need protocol as well. Alright, so now what I want to do, let's at least try something quickly to check if we are able to communicate with Mosquito server. So I assume that they have a little boilerplate code. Yeah. So I'm going to take that. Yep. And take that as well. Alright, and then it means that I have to, in the node itself, I have to call this init function. As I told you, we haven't formalized the way to handle plugins in B, so I'm just going to randomly initialize it somewhere. There, for example. So that would be bmq tt init, and it means I need that as a dependency in the node. Alright, need some arguments. So the bus is defined here, so I just pass the bus. And the shutdown is defined here as well, so I pass the shutdown as well. Alright, let's try to compile that. Value moved here, so yeah, we take that. We just register stuff to the shutdown, we don't store it or we don't do any fancy stuff, so we just pass it to mutable reference. What's happening? Ah, yeah, sure. And yeah, and since it's an arc, the bus is an arc, I just clone it. It should be fine now. Anyway, we are not doing anything at the moment, so let's see what the example look like. They are doing two things. One thing that we are not interested into, they are actually subscribing to something, but since we are only producing data, we don't need to subscribe to anything. So I'm just going to remove that, as well as the notifications we don't care about. So this is how they create a new MQTT client. We can let this name for now. So they are spawning a thread, and in this thread they are looping from 0 to 100, creating a string and then publishing it to a topic. What was the topic we chose? It was bees. So I'm going to change the topic now to bee. And if everything goes well, we should start receiving some stuff. Yeah, it's a bit slow to compile. Alright, so it's loading all the balances from the snapshot, and now it should, yeah, so we start receiving some stuff in the Mosquito sub. It doesn't make any sense now, so let's start replace that. So let's comment it for now. So with the bus, we want to register callbacks, so we are going to create the callbacks. LME listener, for example, that would take an LMI and it would be this type. So that's the first callback, and the second callback would be the same for LSNI, and it would be the last solid milestone. And then we can add some listener, add listener. We are going to add LMI listener, and what's happening? Yeah, and LSMI. So now we registered these two callbacks, so it means that whenever an event will be triggered by any other components regarding this event, these two functions will be called. But what we need to keep in mind is that this function will be called by the one who triggers the event. So we want to make them as short as possible, so we are not going to do any computation in that. We are not going to do any TCP IP stack stuff related. So what you usually want to do is just to forward the event to something else that is going to do the computation for you. So we'll run some tasks and we'll just pass the event to the tasks so that the caller is free to go back to his own work. Alright, just going to close some stuff. To do that, I'm going to need some channels. So I'm going to import that from futures. That I'm going to need as a dependency as well. Hey Yel, yes, I'm at the office, and you can hear the AC of the office really loud. So what was I doing? Yeah, taking the futures. Alright. So now what I want to do is to spawn some asynchronous tasks that will handle the topics. I'm going to do it in a way that we will have one task by topic, because if you have one task for all the topics, then because you have some more frequent events than others, if you compare, for example, the frequency of a milestone event and a transaction event, you have maybe one milestone a minute or something like that, but you have possibly hundreds or thousands of transactions and so on. So if you are only listening to milestones, you may have some delays because you would still receive, I mean, the broker would have to send all the transactions before. So by doing one topic by asynchronous task, you are sure to have the most fairness regarding all the events because they are processed as soon as possible. Alright, I'm going to cheat a little bit as well. Alright, so I'm going to create the tasks, to spawn the tasks, and as soon as I do that, I register them in the shutdown, so that when the node exits, it also kills the all the asynchronous tasks. And we'll need some channels as well. So let's just do something like that. Alright. So I'll just rename that. For example, LMI. The difference is that I'm going to create an unbounded channel for this one. Alright. So I've created two channels here. The first channel is to actually forward the events, and the second one is to be able to notify the asynchronous tasks that it needs to shut down. So that's required by the shutdown mechanism. So that's LMI, and here alright. So now I actually need this asynchronous task, async fn LMI, how do I call that, LMI worker, and that's why I'm going to spawn. So it takes, so I'm just going, for example, to take a type, MPSC, alright. So it's going to take two parameters. I think I may have already some boilerplate for some workers that I'm not going to rewrite everything, something like that. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm going to do, so I'm just going to copy paste it. Alright, so what changed here? What changed is that the event type is not the same, it will be last milestone. We probably don't need that. Alright. LMI worker, yeah, so I don't need this one. Alright, so cannot find worker error. So that's something that is required by the shutdown mechanism as well. I think it's some, yeah, it's there. Alright. So now I still need some stuff to make everything work. So that's probably, I assume that would be all these three. Yeah, so obviously this changed. Alright, last errors maybe? Yeah, I need spawn as well. So that's a lot of stuff to include. Spawn comes from async std. I don't think I would need block on. Then I need to include async std. Alright. Oops. And I see I have a last error there. it's not a receiver, it's an unbounded receiver. Alright, compile it. Alright, so maybe I can just step back a little bit and explain what I've been doing, because that's a lot of includes or whatever. So this is an asynchronous task that I spawn and that will actually handle the event so that this task doesn't have to handle it itself, because this method is being called by the caller itself, so by the one who triggers the event. So we don't want that. We want this one to be as efficient as possible, and the least thing you can do is just to transfer the event to another task, so possibly another thread. So that's why we have this one, and this one will actually be sending this. So maybe, yeah. Alright, so now what we need to do is to actually do the forward. So what it's going to look like is that we are going to need some channels. Yeah, we are going to need a channel to tie this function to this worker, and then we'll need another channel to tie this listener to another worker, but we are going to start with this one. These channels will probably be static somewhere in a static part of the memory, because we don't have any object and no one would have ownership of it, because there is no single worker that would claim ownership of the data. There is nothing. So we have to have a little piece of static memory somewhere. We are already doing that. For example, in the protocol, you can see that we have this piece of static memory, because the protocol needs to have a lot of channels, but they are not really owned by one entity. So I'm going to shamelessly do the same thing here. So I'm going to create a struct to hold all the different channels. So for example, I need this one. That would be an unbounded sender this time. An unbounded sender of last milestone. And on the same thing, I would have an LSNI for last solid milestone. That's not a thing. Oh yeah. And PSC. Yes. Alright, so now I have where is PTR? STD, I guess. Yeah. Alright, just checking something. Alright. I have this piece of static memory that I need to initialize now. So first thing that I'm going to do is to, in the initialization method, I'm going to check if it wasn't already, because you probably don't want, I'm going to command that for now. And then you want to actually set it. Yeah, setting some mutable static is unsafe, so you have to be careful doing that, but we are. And that would be MQTT, and then we are actually going to create the struct. Let MQTT row T LMI, and then we have the channels that we previously created. Oops. Is that, yeah. What? Oh yeah. LSMI, TX. Did I make? Oh, I haven't created yet. Alright, let's start with only one. Alright, for some reason my formatter is not working anymore. Let's not care about that. Alright, and then here, when we actually receive the event, yeah, so now we need a way to have access, to safely have access to this MQTT static. So we can do something like that, a method to get it. I'm just going to put it here or here. So that's not protocol, that's an MQTT. That's MQTT. Yeah, alright. So now when I receive this event, what I'm going to do is I'm going to call it MQTT. So I can do MQTT so that I have access to the instance, then LMI, which is the channel, and then I can call unbounded send, and I can, no I can't, oh, needs to, yeah, sure, LMI.clone, and it's probably going to tell me that come on. Do I need to dereference it? Wait. Josh, is clone actually cloning the reference? Are you there?
What's the error?
I get that it expects an actual last milestone, but it's getting the reference.
Okay. So references themselves also clone. So if there isn't,
yeah,
if there is a clone implementation, it'll probably default to cloning the reference itself.
Ah, I didn't know that. All right, then that's probably
yeah, it's a bit
because
of a funny one. It catches everybody at some point.
yeah, I didn't know that. All right, then it works. All right, I think we are all set up now. So just to recap a bit, we are creating the channels. One of the channels is for actually forwarding the event from the listener to the worker that is going to handle the message. Then we have a channel for the shutdown, because the shutdown mechanism need one, so that when the node exits, it's going to send a signal to the worker. Then we are creating a static struct to store all of our channels, and then we are adding the listeners to the bus. So now the last missing piece is that. So I'm going to take that. I'm going to uncomment it first. Yeah, so we are not going to spawn a thread, it was just for the example, so we are not going to do that anymore. We are not going to loop 100 times either. This is not needed anymore as well, So yeah, that's the core stuff. Yep, so here in this worker, what I'm doing is that I'm infinitely looping on the channels. And I'm selecting which one of them triggered. So it can be either the event channel, which would give me a last milestone, or it could be the shutdown itself, in which case I would break. But if it was a milestone, then I'm doing this stuff. I would remove that. and instead, so here I'm creating the actual message, and what I want to have is the milestone index. So milestone index instead. Oh. Yeah, I probably need to dereference that. Alright, and then what we want to publish is not E anymore, but it's the actual topic, so LMI. So you can probably see that this piece of code is rather long, and we are going to do that for each topic. So we are probably not going to do that. We'll probably end up doing, because they are all going to do very similar. The only thing that is going to change is the way we create the message, which will probably always be a format macro anyway. So yeah, what we'll do probably is to create a macro that is going to define that for a specific topic by giving it the topic name and the type of the event. But yeah, I see that we only have 15 minutes left, so we are not going to do that as part of this stream. Yeah, but I think we have everything we need. So let's try to compile one more time and we'll try this stuff live. Yeah, to do that I'm going to SSH to one of our servers. Alright, did it compile? Seems like it's going to compile, so I'm going to push that to the branch. Well, I hope it compiles, it does. What? Eh. Alright, that's because I previously already created. I'm going to do something else. Yeah, alright. Alright, I'm going to pull that on the server. Alright, so now what I do is that, what was that? Mosquito. So I'm going to do this one here, Mosquito, and so I'm going to listen to the LMI topic on this one. I am unfortunately not going to show live running the server because the server outputs a lot of IPs and I don't want to disclose the IPs of my peers. So in another terminal out of the screen I'm going to run this, but if everything goes well at some point we should start listening some milestone index here. So I'm just pulling alright. So I can just show you temporarily that it's compiling at the moment. While this is compiling and while maybe it will have some synchronization to do, so I'm not sure how long it will take until we hopefully receive something. You can start asking questions in the chat if you have some, because we only have 10 minutes left. It's still compiling. Yeah, the server is not that powerful, so it's even slower than my computer. But yeah, I mean that's the core of the stuff. It's not that complex. I think maybe some of you are asking about that because what we do here is that we are creating a client. It would mean that we are creating one client by topic. I'm doing that for simplicity for the stream. I am not sure that's the best solution, but if we don't do that, then we have to have shared access to the client. Obviously, that's not something we want because that would mean some locking that would probably slow down the whole thing. All right, so it's running, and now I see that I already received an index. So yeah, it went pretty good. I can show you, maybe I can show you a part of it with no IP. Yeah. All right, so yeah, I'm just going to let it there, but you can see that I'm being notified by incoming milestones, so it's working pretty nice. I'm just going to let it run, but I see I've received an error as well, so I would have to investigate. But yeah, that's the core of the stuff. What's missing here is to basically create a macro to generate that stuff because you don't want to repeat it. That's a lot of boilerplate code that is going to be exactly the same for all events. What we need to do is to obviously create one listener for all of the topic, forward them to the associated tasks, listen to all the events, and that's basically done. We have added MQTT to the B node, and that's probably how most of the plugins are going to work in B. They would probably have the same prototype, expecting a bus and a shutdown. I don't see why a plugin would need something else. So the API is quite nice. That would only be that. So probably at some point we'll introduce a plugin thread that would look like that. And if you want to add a plugin to B, you would have to commit to this prototype. Yeah, I think that's it. Maybe we are receiving more milestones. So that's nice. Did you do sensor integration already? I am not sure what you mean by sensor integration. That could mean many things. But if I'm right and you are speaking about embedded sensors or that kind of stuff, that's exactly why we are choosing MQTT over others, and that's why we are introducing it now. So yeah, sending sensor data instead of milestones. Well, coming from a node, you don't have much things to share. You have either milestones or transactions. I'm only doing the way from the node to clients. So what you have to share is only what the node have access to. So it's confirmation data, it's transactions, it's milestones. So I haven't done anything else apart from that. Maybe I have questions from the team. I don't know. Oh, I don't have lights anymore.
No, I think it went pretty smoothly.
Cool.
Absolutely, yes. One
Yeah.
thing Josh should point out is when events have the same name. Say you have two events in two different crates and they have the same name, this could be a problem. So we might need to...
I'm not sure what you mean.
So I've sent you a message that explains it a bit better, but basically using just the name that's produced during the derived macro, it's not going to be a fully qualified name.
Does it matter?
It won't be unique enough for
Yes,
things
yes.
like events type.
Yes, yes, that was my initial question, maybe. But yeah, that's definitely a concern, but at the same time, it would be reported, I guess. It would say something like invalid event, so you would be notified that you did something weird. At the same time, I guess you should have expressive type names if you are doing an event. But that's the exact same thing if we still had the attributes. You could still give a non-unique name thinking it was unique. It was just a bit annoying to me that most of the time the name of the actual name is just a snake case version of the event type. That's just a bit annoying because you end up writing 2 times the same stuff, but yeah.
Absolutely.
And you still have the same issue about uniqueness, so maybe I don't know procedural macros enough to say that. Was that Alex that says that we could maybe include the crate name? Or maybe Sam, I don't remember.
It was me, Sam.
Yeah, so maybe here we could concatenate the name of the crate. I don't know if we have access to that in a procedural macro, but maybe we can try to transform it a little bit.
Well, using the type name function should get you that, give you the fully qualified type name, I think.
Do we have some question here? Oh, that's some German. Will be IOTA huge? Yes. Will be IOTA to the moon? Yes. When? Soon. Hey, Vidal. Alright, I think that's it for me. I'll just wait the 2 remaining minutes if someone has some questions or suggestions or whatever. But yeah, that was MQTT for the B node. It's not a lot of code, but it's a lot of possible code duplication, so we have to worry about that a bit, and we'll just create a macro for that. Otherwise, the rest of the code is pretty straightforward. It would be exactly the same thing. Oh, lights are back. It would be exactly the same thing if someone wanted to implement ZMQ or any other queue. Yeah, and if someone wants to write a plugin for B, that's how it will look like. A bus and a shutdown, and then you do whatever you want with the events. Alright. No more questions. Alright. Then I think, yeah, you can see that, is it not working? Oh, alright, never mind. Alright, I think that's it then. Thank you very much for joining, and see you next week for another episode.
Hey guys.
Bye.
Bye bye. See you next week.